What's the difference between Poilievre and a toilet?
What?
At least the toilet has a seat.
Good old seatless Conservative Party leader Pierre Polievre has released a new video, which I have to show you some clips of because of how incredible it is. I had a hard time getting through a minute of this, but I'm going to make you watch at least 30 seconds or so before I address whatever points he is trying to make, but really hone in on why this man remains so unpopular and why the Conservative Party is considering maybe replacing him. So let me first show you some recent polling. This is the only post-election poll I've seen of Pierre Polievre's favorables, but they show him with the worst numbers among the leaders at -5 for net approval. There's also some new reporting from the Toronto Star here saying Trump aside, there were other reasons why Poilievre lost what many on his team believe was an entirely winnable election. One reason frequently cited by those around him was Poilievre himself. Quote, "He lost because he's a dick," one of his advisors told the Star, a sentiment cited by other staffers and insiders. This is a sentiment I have heard repeated before. I did a video on a discussion around conservative campaigners door knocking, and a lot of the reactions from people at the door, the reason why they were not voting for the Conservative Party is because they did not like Pierre Polievre, many calling him a dick. I mean, after I show you the video, it's going to be hard to argue that this is the impression he gives off. So there's even a recent discussion in the Toronto Sun. This came out today. Brian Lilly, who is an ultra-conservative, saying, is Poilievre done as conservative leader? This discussion kind of seemingly out of nowhere, because there hasn't been a whole lot of this discussion since the election itself. But if you watch that Toronto Sun video, it's three conservatives, all varying degrees of thoughts of for Pierre Polievre, but none of them really gung-ho and super supportive of him staying on as leader. And in fact, in the case of Warren Kinsella, one of the people on that panel, says that he should really get out, and he's the reason why the Conservatives can't win. Which, I mean, there's definitely a reason why Mark Carney was so eager to ensure that Pierre Polievre had a by-election as soon as possible to get back into Parliament. It's not because Pierre Polievre makes him look bad, but Polievre will face a leadership review as early as March, which is a weird way to phrase that. March is next year. This is from the Globe and Mail. So that is from insiders in the party discussing after he wins his by-election, which is all but expected to happen. They may consider, changing leadership. But you also got to wonder, what's the party going to do? The base of the party loves Pierre Polievre. That is why he won on the first ballot in his leadership race. If they try to replace him, are they just going to get a different version of Pierre Polievre? Is there going to be somebody who is going to be able to whip up excitement in the way that Pierre Polievre did with the base? Are they willing to lose that base to the People's Party? So these are all questions that I think the Conservative Party are going to have to answer if they are choosing to replace the leader. But let me get to the first clip from this incredible video. I'm going to pause a couple of times to discuss what is happening here. But here's the first clip.
You got to hand it to them. Liberals are masters of symbolism. See, in the recent election, to convince people that they were no longer the party of reckless spenders, they abruptly replaced a leader who looked like a reckless teenage trust fund baby with a stern-looking banker. The jet black, carefully groomed hair replaced the uncombed surfer dude hairstyle.
Ah, yes, makeovers. Makeovers are very deceptive. Not like Pierre Polievre, who's always looked like this. Maybe he's also looked like this. Maybe these two people look completely different. The gall this man has to frame liberal deception in the form of a makeover. When he went through one of the biggest political makeovers I have ever seen in my entire life, and I cover American and Canadian politics, I've never seen someone change this much within a few years. And you want to try and claim that the liberals were doing this? At least Trudeau and Mark Carney are different people. This is the same person. Just wild. Now, let's also focus on the hard hat in the background. Why? Do you work in construction? Who are you? This is the same sort of actual deception that Pierre Polievre tried to play on the campaign. This is the party that sponsored and voted for, including Pierre Polievre himself, voted for these anti-union bills, Bill C-377, Bill C-525, and then went on in their platform this year to claim that they're going to respect union rights and they won't vote for bills like Bill C-377 or Bill C-525, the very bills they themselves sponsored and voted for. The only party that did. This is actual deception, pretending you're all of a sudden for labor when there is decades of evidence showing the exact opposite. Unbelievable. But this is where we get to the absolute, the thing that literally made me pause the video and close the window.
But do the numbers back up the symbolism? Well, we found out this week. Prime Minister Carney tabled his first spending package before the House of Commons, called the main estimate. See, government has to get the approval of the House of Commons to do any spending. Government has to...
Look, we'll get to the point that he was going to make in terms of spending, but maybe it was because I already had seen a minute of this. At this point, it was a minute into the video. That mid-sentence sip of cappuccino was enough for me to close the window. I don't know what it is. It's the body language, the personality, this persona he's putting on, this acting. It is so incredibly fake. And I'm somebody who was very critical of Trudeau and the way that he came off and how fake he came off. Pierre Polievre is no different than that. It's just a different party at the head of it, some different policies. But this is the same sort of performance being put on. He's somebody that he is not. And it is incredibly hard to sit through. But let me get to the rest of that sentence now. And we're going to discuss the point he's trying to make and how dishonest he's being here.
And to be fair, Mr. Carney's spending is not as bad as Trudeau's. It's worse to start with. We know that he inherited a morbidly obese Liberal government and he promised to, quote, spend less. But his first spending bill will increase costs by 8% more than Trudeau did in his last year in office.
Oh, you thought Trudeau was bad. Well, you haven't seen Mark Carney. This is the same garbage that these people trot out every single time. Think of how much effort, how much time the Conservative Party spent discussing how terrible Trudeau is. Oh, the worst Liberal Party leader the worst prime minister ever. And now Mark Carney's in for a month. Oh my God, he's even worse. It's just like, come on. At least don't treat people like we're stupid. At least, take it one step at a time. You can build yourself up to, now he's even worse than Trudeau. But to start out of the gate with he's even worse, it's just a little much. It also, just the heart of his argument here is so dishonest. He called the Liberal Party that Carney inherited a morbidly obese Liberal Party because they spend so much money. Yet, he wanted to keep all the programs that apparently were making this country so morbidly obese. So during the election, Poilievre suggests he would protect dental care, childcare programs as prime minister. These are programs that he fought against until they were passed. So there's a real disconnect here between what he says is so important, spending, and what people actually value. Because dental care is really popular. Child care is really popular. Otherwise, why would he be arguing to keep it after he fought against it? It's just, there's either you are concerned about spending and you're going to be principled and make these cuts and that's your point of view and that's what you're going to do, or you're not. You can't do both, but he does both. So this also gets to the heart of the dishonesty of this argument. And this is not just conservatives. Liberals argue against spending as well, saying, oh, it's really going to hurt us. Let's take a look at where Canada sits among G7 countries. Gross and net debt to GDP. On gross debt, Canada is under the G7 average. And on net debt, Canada outperforms every other country. Is spending really our biggest concern right now? I mean, take a look at Japan. Japan's doing great, and they're way up there. I think we're fine. Also worth noting, as Policy Alternatives writes here, one of the major economics lessons of the 20th century and the Great Depression is that governments need to act in a counter-cyclical manner. In a crisis, governments shouldn't be tightening their belts. They need to run deficits to support demand. So we're talking about investments into society. Look at COVID. Did we cut during COVID to save our economy? No, we spent in. We helped people. Look at the Great Depression and the New Deal in the US. Did FDR make things worse by cutting everything? No, there was a massive investment into society to build up. And look how they came out of it. 50s, 60s, massive boom. So why is there this fear-mongering around spending when it simply does not bear out in the actual data? I mean, this is the arguments that we have had to fight for decades. We're talking Reaganomics here. This is the same bullshit people have been spewing for years and years, and yet there is still this misinformation around how this actually works. Worth noting as well, the Liberals are aiming to save $28 billion over 3 years by cutting what they call wasteful spending, which may lead to more cuts in things like the CRA, which have already seen nearly 10,000 jobs shed over the last year under this morbidly obese Canadian Liberal Party. But I've had a personal horrible experience with CRA. I've been trying to contact them. Nobody is answering the phone there. It's all automated messaging. So I would prefer them to hire back some of those people, please, so I can talk to somebody. But spending is not our biggest problem. Yet, not just conservatives, liberals are falling into this as well. I am hoping for a massive investment, the one that was promised to us when it comes to, at the very least, housing that Mark kind of discussed over and over again. I think his housing plan looked pretty good on paper. I want to see it implemented. But don't be fooled by this Pierre Polievre and conservative narrative around spending. And considering it's Pierre Polievre doing the messaging, I don't think it's going to fool too many people.